Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olsen.
Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. I'm your host, as always, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
better known as the Three Amigos of True Crime. Hey, guys, by the way, I finally saw the movie Split over the weekend. And I don't know if you guys have seen this movie yet or not. It has James McAvoy in it. And boy, does he play the hell out of that movie, by the way. And
24 characters.
24 total characters he plays in that. And it's phenomenal to watch because I wouldn't believe that one man could pull off such a distinct group of characters, but yet he did. And that's, of course, going to be a subject tonight in hour 2. So we have a guest coming on, of course, that will kind of shed some light on the D.I.D. disorder. Dr. Garrett Deckel will come on. And she is one of the foremost authorities on D.I.D. and whether it actually does exist, whether it's a real diagnosis, whether it's as prevalent as this movie would portray it as, or does it even work like that movie portrays it does. So we will figure out whether or not dissociative identity disorder, D.I.D., is a real or is it more of a played up thing. So that'll be next hour, but before that, we got some fun. We got a lot of stuff to get to this hour. And I was looking for some stuff to top you, Clarissa, because you always come with such good headlines, right? You always do. I don't know where you find these things at. It's like you dig them out of somewhere. I just don't.
Scour the internet.
You must scour the internet for hours maniacally looking for these headlines. But I found one. I found several headlines with a category all its own. And I found it to be quite humorous. Did you know that everyone's favorite big box store, Walmart, is crime-ridden?
No.
It is crime-ridden, man. There are people doing things in Walmart that are just weird. We're going to kick it off of Florida, okay? Hey, Florida, it can never be bad when it starts off of Florida. Okay, Florida's own bucket list buddies busted for shoplifting beef jerky from Walmart, admitting to stealing the beef jerky from Walmart. It was on their bucket list. In Florida news, 2 women in their late 30s were busted for allegedly shoplifting bathing suits and beef jerky. What a combination. From Ocala, sorry, I will pronounce today.
Ocala.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you. Area Walmart, according to police, Andrea Mobley and Jennifer Morrow admitted to the crime and told police that shoplifting beef jerky and bathing suits from the retail giant like Walmart was on the bucket list. The 2 BFFs they made that bucket list together. I'd like to know how that meeting went around, probably having a couple strohs, a couple beers, going, I'd like to do someday in my life. What's that, Jennifer? I'd like to steal from Walmart. I mean, who sits there and has that bucket list? Okay, Mobley.
Like the thing before you die list?
Well, yeah. This is the bucket list. This is before you die. This is what they want to do. And these two ladies in their late 30s, it's not like they're checking out next week here. You know, why are they concentrating on a bucket list already? Come on. Most people want to go see the Great Wall of China. They want to do this. And
Paris,
I've yet to meet anyone that says, I want to steal from Walmart. Mobley told reporters that she was ashamed of the heinous crime.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting
heinous crime. It's heinous. We stole beef jerky bathing suits. Oh my God, we're armed criminals. We're gonna go to jail now, and we can't wear our bathing suits. And went to say we are just two stupid women doing stupid things, and totally too stupid to do bucket list. Come on, we are from Florida. What did you expect?
Wow. Think about it. The combination of crime, petty theft, let's face it, shoplifting, and Walmart, that combination could lead us into a new dimension.
It really could.
When they meet.
Maybe they're trying to find the
blow
fifth.
Up the state.
Maybe they're the reason why some claim that our dimension was destroyed and we were moved into an alternate dimension, causing the Mandela effect. Who knows?
So.
The two bucket list buddies were charged with petty theft, had their mugshots taken at Marion County Jail, and by now are probably out of jail, checking off some more of the crazy things to do on their bucket list. That is crazy. That is
crazy. Go nuts. Now, my thinking is, even the items they chose to steal are an actual physical oxymoron. I wouldn't want to wear my bathing suit after eating a bunch of beef jerky. For a variety of reasons.
My gosh. Slim Jims and I do not get together. Yeah, I mean, we do not coexist very well together, if you know what I'm saying. So I would not be chewing on the old Slim Jim and wearing a Speedo. All right? Only bad things will happen with that combination. Only bad things.
Could not agree more.
Man busted. Okay, Florida man, another Florida person. Man busted for driving drunk inside a Walmart. I know you're always saying, how did he get his car in Walmart? He wasn't in a car. A quick Florida news blurb came across of a Florida man, Timothy Carr, took his booze cruise inside a Brooksville Walmart to take advantage of some of the rollback savings, according to eyewitnesses. Carr was heavily intoxicated while driving a motorized shopping cart around the store, banging into things, knocking things off the shelves, doing wheelies of all things. I didn't realize one of those motorized carts had enough torque to do wheelies. And thrashing the store. Carr managed to swipe a bottle of Old Crow off the shelf and was chugging it while he was cruising around in the motorized shopping cart. Police charged Carr with disorderly intoxication and felony retail theft. Wow. So, wait a minute. What?
Felony retail
theft? Yeah. For a bottle of Old Crow? Are you kidding me? What?
Maybe he stole the cart, too.
Yeah, maybe it's the cart.
It must be. It has to be something because I couldn't imagine getting felony theft for, stealing a $5 bottle of booze.
His last name is Carr? Really?
Yes, it is. C-A-R-R. Wow. Carr. Timothy Carr. I thought
he looks so happy in his mugshot.
He does. Doesn't he look like he's just a happy camper there? Like, hey, look at me. I finally made the news. I was hoping his name would have been Lightning McQueen.
He's having it changed.
That would have been so much cooler if his name would have been Lightning McQueen.
Indeed.
Well, one more crazy one in Walmart. James and Roxanne Murphy of York, Pennsylvania, might be considered the worst parents on the planet. I've met some humdingers over the years, so if
there's a lot of people vying for that
if they get that moniker, they really worked for it. Last week, the parent dream team, I can't believe they wrote that in that article. The parent dream team was charged with child endangering, assault, giving alcohol to. Okay, wait a minute. The child Okay, child engage. Okay, assault, giving alcohol to a minor. How is it assaulting a child by giving him booze? That's what I don't understand.
That's separate.
Sounds
like a
separate.
Okay.
Okay. They didn't do a really good job in this article of separating that in my mind, anyway. And giving a minor a
you
child.
Need commas.
Yeah,
give me punctuation.
There we go. There's the commas. A child and also giving the children pornography, amongst a few other things. 27 criminal counts in total. The secret and the effed up word of the Murphy's family came to light last December when Springett-Berry Township Police received a 911 call from the Murphy's 13-year-old boy reporting that he and his siblings were home alone getting wasted off alcohol. No, not the booze. They're not boozing at that young, are they already? Oh, my gosh. When officers arrived at the Murphy's home, they discovered all 5 kids were wasted. Empty beer bottles in the trash can. At least they were throwing things away. I cannot get my kids to throw anything away. As well as a loaded rifle, that's not cool, on the living room floor. Children told police that their parents went to Walmart and told them either to get drunk off beer or take sleeping pills while they were out. My gosh, that is some stellar parenting. Apparently, I know, right? That is
self-medicate. Come on.
They're getting them started young. Apparently, they went with the former. The oldest, at 19 years old, was heard screaming outside in drunken rage and admitted to police that he was considering suicide. Oh, my gosh. Thus, the loaded rifle on the living room floor. The 12-year-old girl was found screaming in pain, in which she told police that her father dragged her and threw her against the wall and kicked her a few times. Oh, my Lord, resulting... this is not funny at all. Resulting in a broken ribs. 9-year-old reported that he was smacked roughly 20 times, which led to black eyes. Not to mention his father threatened his life and even told anybody... if he ever told anyone the incident, that he would be dealt with. The 13-year-old that made the 911 call also reported to police that her father forced him to put on adult toys. Wow. Okay. All right. I cannot continue, guys. I just cannot continue. It's getting worse and worse and worse. I just can't imagine. Wow. My gosh. So they're making the young child. Let me soften this up. Let's tiptoe through the tulips, shall we? They're making the young man put maybe things that are too mature for him down his pants, if you know what I'm saying, of the battery operated kind.
Good God!
Isn't that
just parents?
This is just ridiculous.
Toward what end? What were they hoping to achieve?
And if that wasn't bad enough, police reported that the house smelled like poop, and the Murphys apparently had a zoo inside their home that included 50 snakes, lizards, rats, birds, a cat, a dog, and even a pot-bellied pig. The children ages 9, 12, 13, 15, and 19 were taken to a local hospital for evaluation, as well as put into protective custody by Yorktown Children and Youth Services. Wow, my gosh. And this is the quote from the parents. They're all a bunch of dirty little liars. Those little brats are liars, Roxanne Murphy was heard saying as police took her down to the station. Wow. Okay.
These were not...
I feel bad for even reading
very small children.
No.
So she spoke of them as if they were infants, virtually. You know, the little brats are liars. Why in God's name would that collection of offspring make that kind of thing up?
I have no idea. You know, some people just should not mate. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Certainly not repeatedly.
You know, I mean, once you have, you know, maybe if they realize that they're going to be bad parents, you know, you think there'd be some self-realization there. Going, you know what, we're not the most, you know, responsible to adults, so maybe we better not have children.
This is beyond not mating, though. This is, I'm sorry. This is like they're on their best behavior when they're not parenting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt in my mind that these people are not quality people. away from the children. I don't think they just leave the house and everybody's like, what upstanding citizens.
Yeah. What a great thing, let me tell you. Yeah, it's really, really strange. I had no idea so much happens at Walmart. So much happens at Walmart that goes wrong. Okay, here we go. This one is a little strange. We're shifting gears now.
You mean even more strange?
It is. Shifting gears, Florida man. Florida man angry that his wife was arrested after planting a hoax bomb on table with a note. Meet Randolph Smith of Vero Beach, Florida. Randolph Smith is 51 years old. He is currently going through a divorce and is pissed off at his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife. Randolph is so mad at his wife that he planted a fake bomb on the table. Okay, get this. Along with a few handwritten letters describing it in red pen that this is an explosive bomb, he said. I'm paraphrasing here. And it will go off. Boom, he describes as in red lettering. Randolph's wife notified police immediately upon discovering the bomb and threatening notes. The bomb squad was called in, and they determined that the bomb was fake and contained no explosive substance. However, it did closely resemble a live pipe bomb. Randolph was tracked down by police at a local Burger King. When officers asked why he planted a fake bomb for his wife to find, Randolph's response was, "She pissed me off." What is that illegal?
Well, that explains it all.
What, is that illegal? The police says, yeah. Randolph was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, planting a hoax bomb, and resisting arrest. Wow. Man.
Well, now that confuses me. The charges confuse me. Please clarify, perhaps, if you know, Clarissa. How could a fake bomb be assault with a deadly weapon? I could certainly see him being charged with something. He deserves it. But how could the crime be the equivalent of if it had been real?
No, that's a good question. I actually don't know. I mean, did he resist arrest or anything like that?
They charge him for resisting because I suppose after he said to the cop, "Hey, was that illegal? Come on. It wasn't a real bomb. What you worried about?" You know, that whole thing. Just like that, too. You never get me, coppa.
In that very voice.
Exactly. What you talk about? I did nothing. I'm been framed, you see. But anyhow, moving along. Hey, did you know they caught Joseph Jabakowski in Wisconsin? Did you guys hear about that?
No, they did?
They caught him. Oh. They caught the guy, Joseph Jabakowski, the Wisconsin man accused of stealing more than a dozen guns and sending threatening 161-page manifesto, which I'm sure Donald Trump read, was arrested Friday following a massive 10-day manhunt. Officials say Jabakowski, 32, was found near Redstown in southwestern Wisconsin. I'm not familiar where that is. Hiding under a tarp. Wow, that is an ingenious move right there. They're never going to find me under this tarp, you see, because I'm invisible once I'm under it. They're never going to find me. Kind of like when you went under the blankets when you were a kid.
Yeah, I was going to say, it works when you're 5.
Yeah.
It works.
He was found. He was deceived, and apparently, because the tarp was not magical, by the way. And they did find him because he was on someone's land. The guy, the owner of the land, told police, "Hey, here's the deal: is I got this guy on my property, and he won't leave, and he's under a tarp, and he says it's invisible. He's invisible, so." You might want to go up there if you could find him. All right. So sheriffs did go up. He did. He did say he thought he was invisible under the tarp. I'm not making that up. I'm invisible, you see. You're never going to find me. Me and the pipe bomb man. We're both here.
Wow.
But
that is delusional.
Yeah. Well, clearly, I mean, he wrote an 160-some-page manifesto and sent it to the president. He's not exactly of sound mind.
Well, so they go up there and they find him under a blue tarp. And, of course, he thinks he's, they can't see him. And in fact, I'm sure he yelled something like this: "You're never going to find me. You're never going to find me. I'm hidden. Ha, ha, ha. Think of this tarp. Oh, crap. They found me. I'm sure exactly that's how it went down.
How did you know?
Well, I have my ways.
You were there.
I have my ways. Thanks to a nicely, I own a drone that goes all over the country.
Did you have that tarp bug?
You know what? I have a drone and I have a bugging system. And I also have the drone with a periscopic microphone. So I go all over the countryside. I hire these people that just fly these drones around looking for these moments that no one else knows about. But anyway, they found him under the tarp, and the owner of the farm called law enforcement, again, like I said, to report a suspicious man on his property. Tactical officers, including the former FBI special units, moved in to apprehend him. Officials said Jabakowski was taken into custody without incident because he indeed did believe that he was invisible to the local police and was being interviewed. He faces a huge amount of charges, everything from evading police to stealing guns to threatening the president. So the guy's going to face some real time, but I just don't understand. Somebody that's... Clarissa, come on. What kind of personality would think a tarp will cover them? Come on.
Well, this person, I'm guessing, has a psychotic disorder. I think that's pretty clear. Based on the rambling, I mean, he's paranoid, he's rambling, he's disjointed, he believes in things that he's invisible underneath a tarp. I mean, in some ways, I kind of wish that the FBI hadn't made such a big deal out of it. I mean, I guess if he's making threats, sure, but it's not surprising to me that he went without incident. He's sick.
Do you think that he'll get a light sentence, or do you think they're going to stick it to him?
It's the feds. No, they're going to stick it to him.
Okay, so he's going to do some hard time.
I think so, I'm not sure that is the right call. He's like I said, he's clearly ill and not medicated. So
I'm curious of whether they'll allow him to keep his tarp.
No.
To keep him
no tarps.
In the Fed pen, here's your tarp. Now you can hide. Okay, good. You can't see me. I wonder if that'll happen. I'm just kind of curious, Just saying.
You never know.
So,
the world's a weird place.
Anyhow, by the way, the place he was found was 160 miles west of Milwaukee.
Yeah, I was going to say it must be quite a ways because I'm not familiar with it. I'm from the southeastern corner of Wisconsin, in case anyone is wondering. So I had not heard of the place that he was holed up. It must be pretty rural.
Wisconsin woman.
It was. Okay. Here's one just for you, Eric.
Oh, good.
Slash versus Van Halen. Rock fanatics battle it out and get arrested. Do you consider yourself a rock fanatic? How far would you go to support and defend your favorite rock band? And we aren't just talking about wearing the 1980s retro t-shirts. We're talking about, would you brawl for them? Would you take one for the team? Would you, Eric?
Hell no.
Okay, would you stand at a crowded bar and shout it out loud, "Your band sucks, mine's the best"?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what happened here.
I would like to think I wouldn't. I mean, I don't really know under the wrong / right circumstances.
But
who knows what I might shout out in a crowded bar?
It wasn't just it wasn't just people. These are buddies brawling it out. See, there's two distinct camps here, and this happened, of course, in Brook Park, Ohio. So, I'm not sure
That's
if you're
right near me.
Okay. Well, this happened. Slash versus Van Halen, because both Van Halen and Guns N' Roses, or Guns N' Roses Slash, were playing at some large bar in that neighborhood. And, of course, it was a large gathering. And David Lee Roth was there, and David Lee Roth definitely egged things on, all right? It says here that David Lee Roth didn't know when to keep his mouth shut while he egged on the drunken patrons. So there they are, right? They're slamming some egg, going, I like the Guns N' Roses. I'm a big Van Halen. Oh, screw you. Next thing they're tussling on the floor. You have David Lee Roth going, fight, 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 fight.
Wow.
So, get this now. Okay. Everybody, the only people to get arrested was not David Lee Roth, who was saying, fight, fight, fight. He never saw any charges. It was the guys. They didn't even touch him.
When was this?
This was just 8 months ago, so it's fairly new. It's just now hitting this odd crime website, so evidently a little behind on the times. But evidently they were playing some type of festival it says this marks it 8 months ago.
Yeah, it was like toward the end of last summer.
Yeah, exactly.
I do vaguely recall that.
And so now the reason why
recall something of that nature.
And the reason why now it's just coming to light because now they got it all sorted out in court now finally of what actually happened. So now that's why it's being released to the press is the smoke cleared, and David Lee Roth is not going to see any charges whatsoever for inciting a brawl.
Wow. Well, inciting, that's interesting. I'd actually be interested to hear what Clarissa has to say about it. What are your thoughts on that, the culpability of instigating, and how far does it go to take away responsibilities from those who are then instigated, or how far should it go in your mind? In other words, under the right circumstances, especially someone who is as well known and has the kind of power under those circumstances that David Lee Roth would have, almost anyone could be instigated into any number of foolish things under, the wrong circumstances and by someone who has some authority in that matter. I mean, it sounds to me that's kind of what this was. Sure, the people who did the actual brawling obviously need to be charged with that. But, I mean, in your mind and to the criminal in the law that you're aware of, is that considered mitigating when you are instigated, or is it just the same because you did what you did?
No, you are in no way mitigated. It's just an accessory sort of charge. The people that are involved in the altercation themselves are always going to get the same charges. It doesn't usually mitigate at all. But I do agree with you, Eric, what you were saying, about the stature of the person. Now, I do think instigators should be charged. I do. I think if you're being essentially, by the way, I think you're a bad citizen if you're instigating. I just do. I mean, it's a really crappy thing to do. And if people are going to get hurt and it's getting violent, you should step in as a citizen and try to calm things down. Now, somebody of David Lee Roth's stature, he's got a lot more power than the average citizen.
Oh, we're not done yet. The argument got totally.
Okay.
The argument.
Sorry to interrupt.
The argument got totally out of control at the Motel 6.
Well, I do remember hearing about this now.
And it was quite a violent brawl. And it was a regular old throwdown. I mean, it was like a rumble, all right, at the Motel 6. See, the police broke it up in the bar. And they said, okay, you know what? You guys chill it out, okay? We get it. You're drinking. You're listening to hard rock, whatever. But cut it out. They kind of gave them a mulligan. Warning. Hey, stop it. We're watching you. All right? So then it spilled over the Motel 6. Police were called. The same police responded to the Motel 6. When police arrived, they were able to claim all of them, knowing them from an earlier incident. They were all taken into custody, so you have Janie Lane, Eric Turner, Carrie Kelly, Joey Allen, Billy Morris, Adam Snort were all taken into custody for using, of all things, ball bats and brass knuckles were taken off the assailants.
Wow. They were messing around.
They were brawling, man. They were brawling. They were fighting at the Motel 6 after David Lee Roth incited fight. They were told by police, chill it out, no need for that. They left. They went back to their hotel and continued to fight. I don't understand. I mean, you would have thought the drive in between there, unless it's a short distance, the Motel 6, you would have thought they would have cooled down by the time the ride was over.
I agree. All right, so yeah, it really is a bad citizen. And David Lee Roth, I actually met him way back, right when Van Halen was just kind of starting to make it. And he was so arrogant, but he was cool. He was really cool, He was strutting around, his chest puffed out all the time. He really was a great singer.
Back in the day, he was great.
Super distinctive voice. That really just fit their sound perfectly.
Yeah, Clarissa's mom, remember we had her on. She hung out with Van Halen.
Mm-hmm.
She did the whole elevator thing. So, yeah. And then, of course, you know, they shouldn't play. I met Ted Nugent one time, and he was extremely arrogant. Oh, my God. Like,
one can
throw
imagine.
up. Yeah, I mean, arrogance. But we got to run to break. Don't go anywhere. Otherwise, we're going to find you at that Motel 6. And when we come back, we're going to go over Clarissa's headlines, which are far more insightful than mine. So don't go anywhere. Be right back right after this.
All the time now. Really thought the thing would go my way, but I bet against it all. Something about the way the summer comes in, it's that smooth.
Hey, you listen to After Hours AM, and if you're listening to us via podcast, make sure you like us, follow us, review us, tell your friends about us, tell grandma about us, and keep listening.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Anavar Media LCC is a dedicated team of professionals committed to helping business development scale and protect their websites, mobile applications, enterprise software solutions in the Northeast Ohio area. Locally owned since 2012, our client-centered values truly sets Anavar apart. Contact us today to learn how you can get 25% off your first project. Call them at 234-380-4852. Again, that's 234-380-4852, or visit them at www.anavar.com. Again, that's www.anavar.com.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If pop culture is to be believed, roughly 40% of all people are actually vampires, or dating one. Well, undead or not, you can always save on a clean, comfortable room at Motel 6, even if you sleep during the day because direct sunlight turns you into a pile of sparkly coffee grounds. Speaking of which, we have free coffee every morning. You day sleepers may want to go for the decaf. I'm Tom Bodette, and we'll leave the light on for you. Book online at motel6.com.
If you're listening to After Hours AM, do you have a question for the guests or even the host? That's really easy. Go ahead and email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Are you feeling like picking up the phone and being part of the show? Call us at 612-326-6874, 612-326-6874. Come be part of the madness.
Rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Yes, you will, precious. You will get the hose.
Let the rumors spread. And welcome back to After Hours AM. Of course, we're talking about rock and roll debauchery. Right before we left, it turns out After Hours AM own Eric Olsen has his own tale of rock and roll turmoil.
Yeah, you know, it loses a little something since we had the break between Joel's tale of violence right here in Brook Park, Ohio, and mine, but very briefly. When I was, I think it was my senior year of college, so it was, or maybe it was between my junior and senior year. Anyway, it was the summer, and a very popular outdoor facility here in Northeast Ohio is called Blossom, and there's many, many outdoor concerts. There's actually fewer really big rock concerts these days than there used to be there. It used to be kind of a staple. Now it's, there's issues. But this was, quite a few years ago. This was, let me see, this would have been either very late 70s or very early 80s. Big show, big concert, lots of drinking, lots of college-age people. All right, the thing you got to know about Blossom is it's this big outdoor, they call them sheds, outdoor facility. The parking, even to this day, is utterly chaotic and absurd. When the show is over, they're all super careful about parking everyone on the way in. They got a big staff of parkers. They're lining you up in aisles and very careful placement, and it's pretty well organized, and everything's okie dokie on the way in. On the way out, the moment that last note is hit in the encore, they all run for the hills. There is no one left to be found. It is chaos.
I've been there.
There are no aisles. There are no pathways. People are facing 50 different directions, including right into each other. It's madness. People who are in the know always leave early, or else they figure they're going to sit there and wait hour,
I always
2 hours,
wait
minimum.
Yeah, like when I saw Skid Row recently, they were playing, and they're still a draw. Sebastian Bach, and he was singing "I Remember You" in the encore. I've heard the song a million times, so I left to avoid that exact scenario. Yes, yep, exactly, man. I get you. What happened?
All right. So I'm in the parking lot. Honestly, I can't even remember what the show was. It doesn't matter. It was at Blossom. Chaotic egress. Everyone's drunk and or whatever else, and it really was just madness. It was the worst I've ever seen it, and I've seen it bad many, many, many times.
Wow.
Literally just no rhyme or reason. So I'm trying to get out. I was in a hurry. I forget why. I kind of felt compelled to get home. I had a friend from school with me who lived in my town, friend from college, and we went to the show, and man, if I think hard enough about it, I think of what it was. But it doesn't matter. So I am near, finally.
It was ELO.
I am near the exit. I am within spitting distance of an exit. I've been sitting there. I had taken forever. I had become increasingly, I admit it, more aggressive with my driving, parking lot driving, the closer I got to the exit because I could smell it. So finally, there's this narrow little tiny gap. Maybe I could squeeze the car through. I had a Datsun at the time, or maybe it was a Nissan. I forget. It was in the period. First they were Datsuns, then they were Nissans. Now they're back to Datsuns again. Makes my brain spin. I'm almost to the exit. I can see it. I can smell it. There's a light there. It's green. I make my move. I cut a car off that was vying for it. I made it. He stopped.
Oh, no.
Maybe a half inch short of the side of ramming into the side of my car.
Man.
We were really close. This guy was utterly deranged and out of control with anger. He bolts out of the car. He smashes my windshield with his fists. He's pounding on the windshield. He is actually cracking it. Smashing it with his fists. This is how enraged he is.
Wow.
Then his friend gets out the other side. They surround us. They come to my driver window, although he could barely squeeze in because, remember, there's hardly any space between the cars.
Exactly.
But he squeezes in. He starts pounding on my window, the driver's window. The other guy's pounding on the passenger side.
Damn,
window.
man.
The guy in the car with me his jaw has dropped. He has a huge round mouth. I can see his tongue lolling around in there. He wants to be anywhere but where he is.
Yeah.
So these fists are coming in. They're starting to hit me. All right. Meanwhile, I notice the guy is all cut up from pounding on the glass.
Yeah.
So without even thinking about it, I exercised my karate knowledge, which was much fresher back then than it is now.
Yeah.
So I'm blocking his arm as he's punching down at me through my window. He's punching down at me. I am blocking his arm up into the glass that's still surrounding the frame.
Man.
And I keep blocking his arm up into the glass. All of a sudden, there's mud and blood and beer and guts and tendons and sinew and muscle everywhere. It is chaos. People are running and screaming. Women are fainting. It is unbelievable. The chaos.
Mass hysteria.
The blood, the guts. Finally, the light turns back. This is all in the course of a minute, 2 minutes. The light turns green. I blow out of there. His arm's still in the goddamn car. I about yanked it off. I did not stop. I did not look back until I got home. Wow. Car goes directly into the garage. I go under the covers where I slept all night without taking my head out.
Oh, wow. What a story.
That is my tale of concert.
Man, what mayhem. Wow.
Mayhem. That guy, by the time we were done, he was done. I fear for his arm. He may have lost an arm.
He might have lost an arm. He might have lost the wing because of that.
And you know what? Ha-ha.
Yeah.
For him.
Yeah, watch. He's going to hear the show and go, really, that was me.
Mm-hmm.
That was me.
I'm going to use my bloody stump to write a strongly worded letter.
It wasn't me. It was the one-armed man. Yeah. What a crazy tale.
All right, that's my story.
No, Clarissa, the first headline I'm seeing here is equally a crazy tale. And I don't know how this can even happen or why it was legal at one point, evidently.
Are you talking about the police
cops,
in Michigan?
Yes. I will set up the headline for everybody. Cops having sex with sex workers.
I want to break this one so badly, though.
What?
I want to break. I want to break the headline.
Do it. Break the headline.
Police in Michigan will no longer be allowed to have sexual relations with sex workers during prostitution investigations.
So
I mean, it's currently legal?
Yes.
So
it is currently legal.
Seems nutty.
For a cop to go get a prostitute is right now in Michigan, it is completely legal.
Only if they're investigating. So if they're part of an undercover investigation about prostitutes, they can still have sex with them so they don't blow their cover.
Oh, gosh.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
In Michigan. It's the only state where it is still legal, people.
To be an undercover cop and to maintain your cover, you got to have intercourse with this prostitute.
I guess just to prove they're a prostitute,
and
right?
to prove that they are not a cop and she's really a prostitute. That is insane. Whoa.
It is insane, but they said, this was it was sponsored by a state senator, and she said that she doesn't think Michigan police officers are taking advantage of this immunity, but it's better not to take chances.
Oh, I'm sure they're taking advantage.
They've never taken advantage.
No, gosh, no. I would never take advantage of that immunity. Oh, yeah, right.
I think about it, though, think of all the TV shows, right, where they're showing Vice. And the whole thing is you have to be very careful. Usually it's set in New York or LA or something. You got to be super careful where you can't actually solicit them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these rules, and none of that exists in Michigan, it would appear.
Evidently, entrapment's cool there.
Yeah, apparently. And she said that this is what she actually said to the Free Press. From what law enforcement tells me, nobody's trained in this, but it's still on the books, so it looks bad.
Oh. No one's trained. What is wrong with you, Michigan?
There's a lot of gnashing of teeth behind the scenes on this one.
What is wrong with you? Why would you even have a law in the books allowing your police officers to have sex with prostitutes? I mean, what stratosphere is this state? I mean, my Lord. That is insane. I mean, I've heard some weird crap on this show over the months, but this one might take the cake. I'm telling you.
It is.
This
it's
one
bad.
Is right
it's
up
really
there.
bad. And it's passed the Senate, but it still needs to pass the Michigan House of Representatives and be signed by the governor to become law.
Now, who's not going to want to pass that law? Come on. Why is it taking this long to even pass? You'd be a no-brainer.
Former police officers in the legislature.
I agree.
Yeah, more than likely. You're right. What's next? Got anything good next? You got tons here, so.
I wanted to get, because we had this story a couple weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. Tad Cummings, remember that teacher from Tennessee?
I do. He took off with a 15-year-old girl.
Yes, 50-year-old former teacher.
That was when Dawn was wrapping the body.
That
is
exactly
when.
Right. And apparently he was coming out to almost that neck of the woods, very, very North California, around where I used to live, actually.
Wow.
They were found in a cabin where they were staying, 2,000 miles from where the search began. And his sister, Tad Cummins' sister, said that he still doesn't believe that it's kidnapping. He said that she was going to run away and he just didn't want her to go alone.
What?
Oh, he's an escort.
Yeah. Now, chivalry is truly not dead then in his mind. Oh,
yes, I mean, that also explains the 2 prescriptions of erectile dysfunction medication that he filled and the lube that he bought.
Yeah, yeah. Explain that one, Tad. Come on.
Yeah, they checked his credit cards.
Yeah.
Every time
Wait a minute.
they came to a puddle, he put his suit coat down for her.
This guy was on the run and he used his credit cards? You gotta be kidding me.
And erectile dysfunction medication, yeah.
And I assume
just
you're not
before he
talking
left,
about
I guess.
for a automobile.
Yeah, no, I guess it was a They didn't say what brand though. They said Popular.
A popular automobile?
A popular brand.
Okay. Wow.
goodness.
So he gets the old limp lifters and the lube and runs off with her. Oh, geez, that's not suspicious at all, Tad. Well, we would never think that of you. Yeah.
No, he was a chaperone.
He was a chaperone. That's all he was.
After taking $4,500 out of their shared bank account, buying his medication and the lube, and nobody would think that anything untoward was going on.
Nobody would ever think that. Nobody. What is this next one?
The 37-year age difference? No biggie.
I got this weird headline. I realize it's at the bottom, but it really caught my eye. And I think you should say this one about motorboating.
Oh, God. I can't even believe I'm sorry.
It just caught my eye here. I got to talk about this one.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Motorboat goes so slow.
Weight loss doctor forces female colleague to motorboat her.
My goodness.
No.
Surgically enlarged breasts, yes.
Okay, we if for anyone that's not initiated of what motorboating is, Google it.
Oh, wait, can I read the actual description that they put?
Yes, please.
They wrote, okay, this is in quotes, people. Motorboating is slang for a person moving his or her face back and forth between another person's breasts and making a sound like a boat engine.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I had no idea what motorboating was. At all. Thank you for enlightening me on that one.
Now you know.
Motorboat.
Yeah, motorboating around. I love fishy as much as the next guy, but
Yeah. She was charged with a bunch of sexual harassment.
Why is that? Why is motorboating so satisfying?
I don't know.
Why is that a thing? Why is that a thing?
Okay. That begs the question now. You open up the can. Did you ever do a motorboat?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Every day. I mean, are you talking about today or this week?
I'm just curious,
No, probably not every day, but sure, many times. That's why I'm saying, why is that so satisfying? It's so dumb.
I don't understand
juvenile.
it either. It's very juvenile.
Are we going? Is it infantile? I mean, are we reverting? Is that what it is?
Because I'm as guilty as you are, man. I'm as guilty as you are.
I mean, ultimately, isn't the clinical assumption that let's face it, the overly, based on biology, there's no really good reason why men, I mean, let's keep it heterosexual here, just for no reason other than why not? So, why are men so drawn to women's breasts?
Yeah, Clarissa.
Because
why?
Really, they are obviously their primary reason for existing is to feed infants. And they do it so well.
They
so
do.
What is that connection? And if whatever that connection is it something that literally stems from our earliest childhood? In which case, wouldn't girls be in some ways equally drawn to them? I don't know.
Well,
so
we have.
I don't have the answer.
Thank God we have a qualified psychologist on staff that might be able to clue us in on this.
Yes, let's drop this motorboat in her lap.
Well, okay. Freud would, say that you're exactly right, Eric, that it has something to do with, the mother and sort of life as it begins. And I would argue that women are just as obsessed in some ways, and perhaps a different way. But look at all the different products and things that there are that enhance our breasts, that make show them in different ways and frame them perfectly. And I think women are just as obsessed as men are.
I you know what? You're probably right. I mean,
Makes
they
sense.
have to be, because they're always paying attention to them in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I mean, there's always some new product or some new
That's
shirt
what I'm
or
saying.
some bra.
Yeah, it's the Wonder Bra. I know what.
How much of that is socially programmed, though? Do you think?
Well, yeah, but I mean, men's liking of them can be socially programmed too. If we're going to go down that road,
sure. That's
yeah, but I'll tell you what, I'm with Eric, man. Sometimes a good old motorboat is just so satisfying.
Okay, that I don't understand. Actually, that is totally.
It's a juvenile. It's
every
like
way.
It's like the high school, middle school, in the hall, dirty joke kind of thing that no guy truly ever outgrows. Every guy has an inner 12-year-old that still giggles when the word poop is used. Poop. Exactly. So in every guy, I'm as guilty as anyone else. So. Poop. Exactly. We cannot help ourselves. We're still that 12-year-old walking down the hall to school with our friends going, look at the boobs on her.
But
all right, let me attempt.
No. Yeah,
let me attempt an explanation. Let me think. At least semi-seriously. All right. So the elements of Motorboat, it draws from such sort of contradictory aspects. On the one hand, it's so juvenile. On another hand, it is a form of expressing ownership, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And privilege. I am allowed to do this sort of really quite silly thing because these
are mine. Yeah. No one else's. Get your own.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's something like that is my guess of why it's
a
thing at all. Why is it a thing at all?
But why a female to a female? It must be a dominance thing. It had to have been.
Okay, so I would argue that pretty much all sexual harassment is a dominance thing.
Sure.
Anytime somebody is sexually harassing somebody else, it's a dominance thing. But I mean, to choose that, I got to tell you that speaking of taking the cake, that's kind of weird.
That is really weird.
It's silly. It's silly, and that's a key part of it. It is juvenile, So I think there's some sort of frisson between the contradictory elements of, the sexual aspect of it, the sort of claiming ownership, these are mine, aspect of it, and then it's just so silly and foolish. So that combination, just for some reason, seems to be
it's just
especially satisfying.
It really is. It really is. One more headline, the one above it, and it's the Texas kindergarten one, Clarissa.
This is weird. So she's 38, right?
Okay,
not that old.
Yeah.
Police have accused a 38-year-old former kindergarten teacher of having sex with 4 high school boys, 2 of them at the same time.
And the boys are complaining, I'm sure.
No, they're not. They're not complaining, but they are telling the cops everything because essentially they're busted. But here's kind of okay. I'm trying to look at this from a boy's perspective. All right. So you've got this 38-year-old blonde teacher that wants to have sex with a high school boy. Do you just bring your best friend over and hope that he can get in on the action? That's
No, I would not do that if I were in those shoes.
No.
That.
Why? So why not? Why no?
That honey hole, so to speak, is all mine. I'm not sharing my hunting ground with another dude. All right. Okay.
Well, and beyond that, it's wrong.
Yeah,
it's illegal.
Exactly. But you know what? All the wrong things though feel so good.
I'm saying that's why you wouldn't want to witness.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And
I I have never, for 1 second in my life, understood the appeal of anything beyond two people.
I've never gotten it either.
Absolutely,
I have never
blows my mind.
I've never understood
anyone
that.
would find that appealing because it just seems so contradictory to all the things that are positive about that kind of relationship.
And honestly, in relationships we're talking, it's a relationship destroyer. I've seen Jerry Springer. I've seen all those people up there going, we had a threesome and now it's ruined.
I mean, yeah, I've never, I mean, I know it's not uncommon. I've heard you hear rumors. I try not to buy into them. I mean, just, hometown stuff,
well,
right?
Of course. Yeah, of course. They're sleeping together.
Beyond that,
yeah.
Swingers. Blah, 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 so, I mean, you hear it, and I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Well, I don't get it.
Well, okay, now this, though, is weird because he brought a friend. I'm sure the invitation wasn't you plus one.
I know. That's what's so strange. It's like she goes to pick this kid up, right? Because she has to pick them up, I don't know if they can drive or whatever. Yeah. And he brings a friend?
Yeah, he gets off the big wheel and gets in the van with her.
Maybe he was feeling a little insecure.
Yeah,
and
maybe
he needed a real up close and personal wingman.
He needed a cheerleader in the background going, "You can do it!"
No, wrong hole.
Oh man, and so this is okay. This makes it even worse. So apparently, when confronted by police, this woman allegedly admitted to the illicit affairs, and she advised that she recently became a heavy drinker and would sometimes not remember the details of the sexual encounters with the students.
Yeah, blame the booze. Yeah, okay, really.
Blame it on the alcohol.
Yeah. Old granddad is old cough syrup. You're gonna blame it on the devil's juice? No, come on.
Well, and just, I mean, okay, does alcohol usually lowers inhibitions? It doesn't usually make you do things that you would never, ever do.
Exactly. This lady knew what she was doing. She was after the young stuff.
She's got
Let's
issues,
just admit it.
And she's a kindergarten teacher. Well, was a kindergarten teacher.
Well, yeah, not anymore. I'm sure she lost her job pretty fast after that came out.
She quit, I guess. She didn't give him a chance to fire her.
Wow. Well, I suppose.
Well, thank goodness. When you said kindergarten teacher, I had the worst possible vision.
Yeah,
so thank goodness it wasn't that.
Well, the first boy allegedly told investigators that he had started chatting and sexting with Robertson through Snapchat. Oh, that Snapchat, man. That's a devil's playground. I've heard about that more than once on the show. The affidavit states in time she allegedly invited him over for sex. He brought a friend, leading to a group sexual encounter at her home. Court records allege the second student confirmed the account of the first. Oh, my gosh. Ugh. And she's not that overly attractive.
She's, I mean, she's not like
weird
some
eyes, she kind of looks like Sloth from the Goonies in some respects. Baby Ruth.
Oh my!
Evil. I love that movie though.
Oh, I do too. Oh, we used to watch that over and over.
Chocolate. Yeah. I mean, she doesn't. I mean, then again, that's a mugshot, so not everybody's smiling in their mugshot.
I have not always looked best in my mugshots.
The thing of it is, though, is this lady had to have known. She has to. Her attorney, if she has a good attorney or any attorney, will tell her, yeah, that's not going to work as defense. All right, you might as well just fall on the sword of being stupid and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life.
That's
son.
right. That's right. Yes, a la Animal House.
Exactly.
Great movie. But
do we have time for like one really quick
one really quickie. Yes.
Because it's Florida. All right.
Okay. I have always had time for Florida.
A police impersonator decided to pull somebody over because Eric, kind of like the story you were telling, there was a little bit of road rage there, and he pulled somebody over in his Crown Vic, impersonating a cop. Guess who he pulled over?
A cop.
A police detective.
Did he really? Yeah. Oh my God.
Perfect.
Wow, that had to gone over great.
That was instant karma, huh?
Wow.
It is. They searched his vehicle. They found a BB gun, a blue police light, and like replica police gear in his car.
You know, we talked to a guy that owned the poop factory, you know, picking up dew, and he was doing something similar. But this guy was so stupid, he pulls over a police detective.
Well, I guess it was a plainclothes detective, so he didn't know that it was a cop.
So he pulls him over. You know what stopped you for? I don't know, officer. Why don't you tell me? Oh, by the way, here's my badge. I would imagine that went down horribly.
And mine is real.
Yeah. And you know what else? My gun is real. It's not a BB gun. Wow. Man, did it say what charges he's facing?
I didn't get that
well,
far.
Of course,
no, I don't know. I know that impersonating a cop, though,
yeah.
is not going to go over well.
No, it's not. That does not get you anywhere. We got to run, go to Fox News. We come back. We are going to be speaking, of course, about D.I.D, dissociative identity disorder. There it is. I spit it out this time with Dr. Garrett Deckel. Don't go anywhere, and I will gather my words much, much better. Be right back. Right after this.
Live from New York, The Fox Report.
And Lisa Brady, a sweeping plan to cut taxes and reform the tax code.
I would never, ever bet against this president. He will get this done for the American people.
The president's top economic advisor expecting attacks from both sides of the aisle. Fox Radio's John Decker, live at the White House.
The Trump administration unveiled what it called the biggest tax cuts in history with a proposal that lowers the corporate tax rate to 15% from 35% and would reduce the number of tax brackets from 7 to 3. But it has yet to determine the income levels for people who would be put in each bracket. Gary Cohn is the director of the White House National Economic Council.
Our basic premise here is to simplify the tax system, lower rates, and make it easy. We don't want to penalize people. We want to make the system very fair.
The White House has yet to spell out how much of a hole the tax cuts would create in the federal budget. Lisa?
Thanks, John. The plan would also eliminate the so-called death tax. Congress, meantime, remains focused for now on avoiding a government shutdown this week. But there's also movement on a revised health care plan. Fox Radio's Jared Halpern, live on the Hill.
A Republican health care bill stalled for weeks has new life. A new proposed amendment has secured the support of the conservative House Freedom Caucus, a group that helped sink the measure last month. But not every Republican is yet on board.
I suspect those who were opposed to the bill, to the underlying bill prior to the amendment, are still opposed with the amendment.
Pennsylvania Republican Charlie Dent leads the Moderate Tuesday group and says he is still concerned about loss of coverage. The new amendment would give states more flexibility to waive some insurance requirements mandated by the Affordable Care Act. Lisa.
Thanks, Jared. Wall Street taps the brakes. The Dow down 21 points. The NASDAQ slips a fraction. On the Fox Report, fair and balanced. President Trump signing 2 more executive orders aimed at rolling back more Obama-era regulations, including rules for schools. He says federal whims shouldn't dictate what's taught.
We know that local communities do it best and know it best. The time has come to empower parents and teachers to make the decisions that help their students achieve success.
The order kicks off a 300-day review of the previous administration's guidance to schools. He's also aiming to give more power over land use back to the states by ordering a review of the Antiquities Act used to designate national monuments, including parks. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke says what began as an effective tool for preservation is now often used for political advocacy, spanning tens of millions of acres.
In some cases, monument designations have placed public lands off limits for grazing, fishing, mining, multiple use, and even outdoor recreation.
He says the review ordered by the president won't eliminate any designations or weaken any environmental protections, but conservation groups predict it eventually will. Oscar-winning director Jonathan Demme has died. He was 73.
Demme directed some of Hollywood's biggest films, from Philadelphia to the film in which he won Best Director.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
The Silence of the Lambs, which was only the third film in movie history to sweep all the top Academy Award categories. His Talking Heads documentary, Stop Making Sense, is considered one of the greatest concert films ever made.
Fox's Michelle Polino. Demme died of complications from esophageal cancer. President Trump tweeting happy birthday to First Lady Melania Trump with a picture from Inauguration Day. Mrs. Trump, who's 47 today, spending part of her first birthday as First Lady, attending a Senate Spouses Luncheon at the National Gallery of Art. In New York, I'm Lisa Brady on Fox News Radio.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me. Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
We are back. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me.
Eric Olsen.
There we go.
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
You guys missed the cue. What's up with that? That's not like you guys. Well, anyhow.
You fixed the music, but now there's something else wrong.
Oh, see, it was just it's always silent. A gremlin in this studio, I tell you.
We couldn't hear you. No.
Darn you, our radio overlords. When are you ever going to fix everything
Shake
correctly?
Your fist to
I
the
will.
sky.
I will. I'm going to write a strongly worded letter. Is what I'm going to do. And they're not going to read it, but at least I know I've written.
They will see all those exclamation points.
They will, and that's all. They'll be like, this guy again? Throw it in the pile. But hey, we got a great show, second hour here on tap. A great guest. So Eric, why don't you tell us about our guest tonight?
Oh, I shall. Split is the hit 2016 psychological horror thriller film written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. Though Kevin Wendell Crumb, played by James McAvoy, cursed with dissociative identity, I want to add extra syllables, dissociative identity disorder, D.I.D., he has revealed 23 personalities to his trusted psychiatrist. There remains one submerged who is set to materialize and dominate all the others. Compelled to abduct and imprison 3 teenage girls in an isolated underground facility, Kevin reaches a war for survival among all those contained within him as well as everyone around him. As the walls between him, his compartments, shatter. What is dissociative identity disorder? According to expert Dr. Garrett Marie Deckel, and that is a mouthful, but it's a delightful mouthful. People who have been chronically abused, typically in situations with no viable escape, may reconfigure the mind into different parts or personalities. Some of these parts can step in to handle traumatic or stressful situations, while other parts dissociate or escape from reality. In contrast with McAvoy's character in Split, people with D.I.D. are rarely violent. Research has shown that they are far more likely to hurt themselves and to hurt others. But movies tend to portray only the most extreme aspects of the disorder. This can misrepresent a form of mental illness that is not well understood by the lay public or even many psychiatrists. Garrett Marie Deckel is clinical assistant professor of psychiatry at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, New York City. She's also in private practice with a specialization in post-traumatic and dissociative disorders. She earned her medical degree at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, and prior to that completed a Ph.D. Oh, you are just too impressive. In the philosophy of mind and ethics, neener, at Princeton University. Welcome to the program, Dr. Deckel.
Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy the opportunity to talk about this fascinating topic.
Yeah, you know, it really came to my attention watching the movie Split. And I kind of forgot about the whole, back it used to be called multiple personality disorder.
Right.
And then the D.I.D. came out. And by the way, before we begin, do you prefer Dr. Deckel or do you prefer Garrett?
Garrett is just
okay.
fine.
Just making sure. But Garrett, now I was watching the show, and this individual. Have you seen the movie yet? By the way,
Yes.
Okay, good. He exhibited several different personality types that seemed to be evolved and even had their own backstories and everything. And it made me go, oh my gosh, is this even possible to have this many evolved different alter egos in one mind? Do you see that a lot to that extent, or is that just totally blown out of the water for Hollywood's sake?
Well, he is definitely on the severe end of the spectrum, and there is a spectrum in terms of how many different personalities there might be, how elaborated each one might be. But I don't think that the number of personalities or even the elaboration were the most unrealistic parts of the movie. I mean, I think actually that part. Yes, I do see that. I do see that in a lot of my D.I.D. patients.
So there was a kernel of truth there.
There was a kernel of truth in the representation. It was in other ways, I think, simplified and certainly demonized and misrepresented.
Well, definitely, and that was another thing I want to say. Does it kind of demonize people that have mental illness? That's why I was kind of worried about seeing the movie, because I have family members that have their own mental challenges with mental illness, and no way, shape, or form are they any violent or demons or mean or anything. And so I was kind of worried that maybe this whole group of people now be viewed upon as something to be feared.
Exactly. I mean, that's my biggest problem. You know, there's a lot we could get into about the way the disorder is portrayed in detail that's quite interesting. But the biggest problem is really that it perpetuates this association between mental illness and violence in a climate where there still is a lot of stigma. And in particular, this disorder is so misunderstood. And it's so easy to think of someone, because it is, especially when you first encounter it, you know, quite striking and quite kind of arresting. And it's easy to think of that as some foreign, you know, completely alien type of being. And that's really sad, because these are people who already typically feel very, very ashamed and very isolated and are really quite normal and really crave normal connections with other people. And, you know, the movie doesn't do anything to sort of help their self-image or the image, you know, of the disorder in general.
I was going to kind of add to that I have dealt with it just a very, very few number of times, but it was a state hospital situation where it was severe. And one of the things that was really striking to me was how even some of the treatment staff were acting as though this person had completely disappeared and they were dealing with a complete unknown. And I thought that was kind of odd in some ways, because it is still the same person. I mean, can you speak to that a little bit, that even though it's separate personalities, there's still sort of a through line there?
Oh yeah, it is certainly one person, and that's really the reason that the name was changed from multiple personality disorder to dissociative identity disorder. Okay. Multiple personality disorder is catchier, but it's not really accurate. I mean, there are not multiple people inside, and there are not really even multiple personalities. What you have really is different states that a person can go into, and we all have somewhat different states. And I don't want to take up too much time, but they've characterized very well different kind of behavior, psychobiological states that children go into, for example, like active awakeness, fussy awakeness, sleep. And there are all these different variables, physiological and psychological, that you can measure in these different kind of complex states. And we all have states like that. These are just more extreme. So one of a brilliant psychologist or psychiatrist in Philadelphia, Dr. Richard Kluft, who's a pioneer in this field, has said that really parts or personalities aren't really the best metaphor. The best metaphor is something like reshuffling the deck. Like you have a deck of cards and you're reorganizing it. Okay. So it's like we organize into one state and then we reorganize biologically and neurologically into another state. And they've done functional magnetic resonance studies showing that there are different networks active and there's different kinds of functionality in when people are in these different states. But it's one person just, being kind of reorganized rather than multiple people.
I was going to ask, can their physiology change? Because I know one of the characters in the movie was diabetic where the rest weren't.
Yeah, I don't know if that can happen with diabetes, but there are a lot of anything that sort of can physiologically shift. Yeah, it can definitely happen. They've documented eyesight, vision differences in different states. You often see different states respond to medication differently. Like a medication will help. One state will say it's helping a lot, and another state will say it's making me too tired or something like that. Sometimes one state will have pains or like I've had someone who had one of her states had a limb disability, like where she really couldn't use one of her limbs, but in the other states that limb was fine.
Wow. Man, the power of the mind.
Yeah.
My gosh. Really, that's what it is. It's the total power of the mind. The mind is telling the body to do something, the body's following.
How often do these people really have complete separation where they're not even aware of the other personalities? How common is that?
That's much more common before they've been treated. In fact, often they're not aware of that they have anything like this condition at all. I mean, people, it's often called a hidden disorder because they kind of hide it from both themselves and from other people because they're ashamed of it, but also because they don't really know what's happening necessarily to themselves. Like, what they'll just come in and say, I'm depressed, or I have these weird mood shifts, or sometimes I forget things, or, I can't concentrate, or any number of symptoms, that are not that uncommon. And you don't usually have somebody who's aware that they have, these radically different states, unless they're having amnesia where, somebody has pointed out to them how different their behavior might have been on a certain occasion, but they still kind of don't know what to make of it. And it can actually be a big relief when you explain it to somebody and it makes sense and they say, oh my gosh, yes, that is me. That's what happens to me. And for example, it's commonly misdiagnosed as either schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or other disorders. But
Gotcha.
So people get treatment that they don't really need, and the diagnosis just doesn't really fit. And so when you finally tell somebody that studies have shown that people are often in the mental health system an average of 6 to 12 years before they get the correct diagnosis of D.I.D. So it's kind of like, oh, finally, at least yeah. I'm going to be treated for the right thing. At least, I know what's happening now.
So they're typically not violent individuals, and that's something in the movie they show his 24th identity, and of course this is a movie made for entertainment, and so he believes that he is turning into, air quotes here, the beast,
right?
And he is going to he exhibits skin like leather and traits of animals, able to climb walls and all those crazy things. I sure hope the hell that isn't true, Doctor. I really, Garrett, man, if there's guys and gals out there that can change that much, that's kind of a scary proposition.
Right. I mean, again, that's where I think the movie is kind of pernicious, actually. It sort of takes it to such a negative and frightening extreme. But, look, it's fun. People like horror movies. That's, I get that. You don't have to be realistic. But no, I mean, those things exceed by far. Your body can't change like that. It can't just sort of spring
morph
massive amounts of muscle and, change the skin into some reptilian type of, that cannot happen. But, and the film also, they really play that up. The film really emphasizes how different the personalities can be and sort of suggests that maybe this is our window into the supernatural, in fact. That there are those times when they say things like that this is the doorway to the unknown, or
exactly.
They make it sound so mystical, and it's not. It's it's impressive, but there's a sound biology to it, and there's no reason to think that it's extra scientific or anything. That the brain is awesome, and there's a lot that we don't understand about it, of course, but there's no reason to think this is incompatible with what the brain can do.
Okay.
What is the typical cause? In the description, the short description of the disorder, it said it's often caused by some sort of pretty extreme trauma. In your experience, what kind of things have caused this? Maybe even give an example or two. Just reveal as much as you're comfortable with. Just real interested in where it comes from and what it ultimately achieves for the person. Why does their brain react that way?
So it's the kinds of trauma. It's more than 90% of people who are diagnosed with this report a history of some type of extensive trauma early in their life, and it's not just a one-time event or something. It's usually prolonged, severe sexual or physical abuse. It can be neglect plays a big part. Medical interventions early can also cause it, because that could be very traumatizing when you're a child and you don't really know what these things that are being stuck in you or whatever are. And usually it's a combination of all these things. And importantly, not just the trauma that happens, but the lack of any kind of support. So usually if a child, sexual abuse, for example, is very common. And I see a lot of people who had either a family member, in some cases a parent, in some cases a cousin, an uncle, whatever, who regularly sexually abused them. And there's a big difference between being an adult who, as awful as it is, who experiences a sexual assault, but in that case, you have a fully developed brain, and hopefully you have someone you can turn to help you get through it. Whereas a child, A, their brain is still developing, and B, they typically, one parent is maybe a perpetrator, and people around don't really want to know, and often people feel almost more betrayed by a parent who stood by and didn't do anything, or who didn't believe them. That's often as traumatic. These are the people that are supposed to protect you, and it's a betrayal of both. So there's no comfort, and there's no reconstituting.
No safe
it's
harbor.
Just terror.
No safe harbor for them to go to be understood of what's going on. Now, so the abuse is so bad or so extensive that the personality splits. Maybe this personality.
Going back to that. So dissociation is itself. There are a lot of forms of dissociation, but it's a coping mechanism that we all have. You might, if you've ever been in, I don't know, a vehicle accident or
sure,
any kind of assault or attack or something like that, people will often describe that their perception of time is altered. Either things seem to move really slowly or really quickly. They might have perceptual distortions. They might feel like they're outside their body watching what happened. Those are all dissociative mechanisms that are kind of last resort ways of tolerating something that you can't escape from. Most people have heard about the fight or flight response, which is, if you're under attack, that's the first response, is that the body pumps up the sympathetic nervous system, gets your heart going and gets your blood circulating, and you're getting ready to move. But if you're a small animal or a small child and there's nowhere to run and you can't possibly win a fight, then the next step is to freeze, to immobilize. It's kind of like playing dead.
Gosh, it's so sad.
It's devastatingly sad. Yeah, it really is. But so you kind of just, it's like your best chance to survive is just, if you're an animal, the predator may not perceive you if you're not moving, but if you're a child and there's no escape, this is how the mind can can escape. This is how the mind can go elsewhere. And we don't understand exactly how the different states form, but it's probably, like if you're a child who now you have to live, say it's a parent, you have to live with that parent, you have to see them every day. How do you go on? If you behave as if you're terrified and angry, you're probably going to bring on more violence. And but yet what do you do? So there come these different states that can handle different situations. Some that can remain the loving child who doesn't even know that it happened, and some that might be.
Gotcha. It's almost survival. It's a survival mechanism, is what it is at the end.
Yeah, it's
gotcha.
A very complicated survival mechanism.
Boy, that's so sad. Clarissa,
how did you get involved? Well, yes, and why don't we wait, because we only have about 5 minutes to the bottom of the hour.
Yeah,
I'm very interested to hear Clarissa's thoughts and interaction. I know she thinks don't want to put words in her mouth, but there is some controversy to the topic, so I'm very interested to hear what aspects of it she finds controversial. I was going to ask, though, just in these 5 minutes before the bottom of the hour, how did you get so interested in the topic? What brought you to it as a specialty, and what do you get out of it?
Well, I came to it, I think, probably like a lot of people do, kind of by accident. I really didn't learn about it in my training. I mean, I just knew I don't think it was really mentioned or discussed much. I knew it was controversial and, sort of bizarre and hard to believe, and that was about all I knew about it. And then it was someone that I had already been treating for 3 years in psychotherapy who the picture just wasn't adding up. She was depressed, but she was hearing voices, but she wasn't schizophrenic, and she had mood swings, but they didn't fit bipolar, and eventually she started kind of going into these trance-like states in my office, and that's when I realized it was something dissociative, but I kind of still didn't know what to do. So I reached out to an expert, and he immediately kind of recognized that this was likely the diagnosis, and my first thought was, well, I got to refer her to somebody else who knows what they're doing. But he said, no, you can, the basic skills that you have are the ones you need. You just need to understand a little more what you're working with. And then, over time, once we started addressing it, different alter personalities did come out and so on. And
sure,
I was fascinated by it, and also just appalled at how little recognition there is in the field, and how little resources these people really have in terms of practitioners, who have any understanding of what's going on. I mean, a lot of times, sometimes therapists will refer their patients to me for medication because a previous psychiatrist will have told the patient, your therapist is doing a terrible job. That's not a real thing. That's not what you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know Cheryl, Adrell Mason, she was from Minnesota, where I am right now, was she was the basis for Sybil, was one of the first cases I was aware of, because I read the book in high school, about someone that had, at that point in time, they're called multiple personality disorder.
Right.
And was she kind of the quintessential classic case, or was she an extreme case?
I haven't read the book and I haven't seen the movie for a long time, so I hate to comment too specifically. Sure. But I think she was an extreme case, but I don't know of any details from that story that are not possible. And going back to what you were saying about like how often does it happen that the different parts don't know about each other? I mean, it often does. It often does happen. I mean, like I said, at first they probably don't have any idea what's going on at all, but it's not uncommon in my experience for when one alter starts coming out for what we call the host sometimes, the person who initially came in, to not remember anything at all about what happens during the session. Like they'll often come back and say, "You let me sleep through the session," when in fact I've been talking to one of the alters the whole time.
Okay. Very, very interesting stuff. We're going to run a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Dr. Garrett about this and get Clarissa's 2 cents on this too as well. Being in the prison system, what that's like if someone is exhibiting this and all that kind of good stuff. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with this very, very fascinating topic. Hey, you listen to After Hours AM, and if you're listening to us via podcast, make sure you like us, follow us, review us, tell your friends about us, tell grandma about us, and keep listening.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Hey everybody, this is Joel Sturgis, and did you know that After Hours AM and America's Most Haunted have a great new website out there? You're going to want to visit America's-Most-Haunted.com. There you can get all the new content from all the writers for America's Most Haunted, as well as the great haunted headlines everybody loves each and every week, as well as catch After Hours AM live right there, along with podcasts, past shows, and get to know your hosts, as well as contact us all in one stop. You're going to love it. You're not going to want to go anywhere else. So come to America's-Most-Haunted.com today.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to Geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
You're listening to After Hours AM. Do you have a question for the guest or even the host? That's really easy. Go ahead and email those questions to afterhoursam@gmail.com. Are you feeling like picking up the phone and being part of the show? Call us at 612-326-6874, 612-326-6874. Come be part of the madness.
Rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Yes, you will, precious. You will get the hose.
Down, but not forgotten. Left alone, ain't gonna take it like now. It's alive, is what you make it. All my time, gotta reach out and take it. Now, if you would only just.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olsen and
Dr. Clarissa Cole.
And we are talking, of course, we're talking really fascinating subject matter with Dr. Garrett Deckel tonight. And mainly we're covering this because the movie Split has brought the D.I.D. Syndrome, I guess, or I don't want to call it an illness, because I don't believe it's an illness. I just think it's someone's personality trait, because unless you guys believe it's more of an illness, and we'll get into that. Now, Clarissa, we're all curious to get what you think of it, and where you stand on the whole thought process.
I do think it's incredibly rare. That's for sure. And I think a lot of times, I know there's controversy about whether people in the field really believe that it actually exists as a diagnosis, or if it's something altogether different, like maybe a very severe manifestation of borderline personality disorder or something like that. So I think it's kind of up in the air as far as a lot of people in the field are concerned.
Well, it's interesting. I usually take, when people say that they don't think it exists, that there's in the literature there's the kind of sociocultural hypothesis or the fantasy hypothesis, the idea that people are either one feigning the states, which has pretty much been disproven because there are now enough brain imaging studies where they've actually had actors, try to feign the same thing, and they can't do it. They can't. The brain just is doing something completely different when someone with this disorder actually switches states. And it's interesting about borderline personality. I mean, there are some similarities, and there are people who think that they're on a continuum. I mean, what's typically one thing that's very different is the degree of amnesia. I mean, it's very common, in dissociative identity disorder, you have to have a level of amnesia that's inconsistent with ordinary forgetting, and that doesn't typically happen in borderline. And there are other things that are quite different too, but borderline personality disorder is also has a high correlation with childhood trauma, and it may be that there are some kind of common mechanisms involved and common ways of separating out and compartmentalizing reality and shifting kind of states.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is, if I could wrap my mind around this, because I'm all new to this, and you and Clarissa are far and away more learned on this than I am, and I'm just trying to keep up. What you're saying is sometimes it's misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed because of the borderline personality disorder sometimes makes the diagnoser take that left turn to think it's that rather than D.I.D.
That's, yes.
Okay.
That or schizophrenia or bipolar or any number of things. And it's confusing too because often there are comorbidities. Typically someone with dissociative identity disorder will also meet the DSM criteria for PTSD and often for major depressive disorder and often for anxiety disorders. They often have substance abuse. They often have eating disorders. So it's so easy to go down any of those roads without recognizing that the primary problem is something else.
I was going to ask, how do you weed through that? And it sounds like you have a pretty good handle on that, of how to, diagnose it.
Well, it's really something where it's like once you learn to see it, it's like a lot of things where you kind of have to practice and get the feel for it. But then once you learn to perceive it, you'll start seeing the signs of dissociation. And then once you start seeing those, you can investigate further and, go down the road of asking the right questions, basically, about the whole range of do you feel disconnected from your body? Are there times when you lose time or you don't know, how something got in your closet or, how something where things that you don't understand, there are signs of behavior that you don't remember doing. And then once you start asking the right questions, that it helps a lot. But I think a lot of people just don't recognize the signs of dissociation when it's in front of them.
I would not.
The more subtle signs.
I would be totally lost. Now, can they rapid fire personalities like was portrayed in the film Split? Can they wrap them off like every 10, 15 seconds? There's a different personality coming through, or do they tend to stay with one for a longer period?
They tend definitely to stay with one for a longer period. That's actually another kind of way in which these representations are not quite accurate. There isn't typically just a kind of like, all of these different states are living in the world. Let's just all kind of trade off.
Yeah.
It's not usually like that. It's usually like I said, they want to keep it hidden. So if anything, they will try to pass for all being the state that everybody knows that functions in the world and keep hidden the fact that there are any other states. And that kind of like flamboyant switching is really quite unusual.
And it wouldn't serve much of a purpose either. I think that is kind of misunderstood in movies, or not misunderstood, but misrepresented. Yeah. That, when an alter is making itself available, I guess, it's usually for a purpose, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's usually some kind of situation that alter is best suited to handle, or the host, is too frightened, or it's too triggering of a reminder of trauma or something like that. So there'll be a switch in order to to serve a certain function that alter can serve.
So it's not just a change of personality, There's a reason for it. There's a trigger. There's something's going on that's making that emerge.
Yeah, and something's going on. I mean, it also shows sort of how it's all one person more, because it's like let's help us deal with this situation. It's not like there's just sort of 5 different people living their own lives or something.
Yeah, because
in one body.
Hollywood would have us think that these people, the personalities, they go away and they do whatever, and then they just reemerge when called upon, and they have their own backstories and life, and dislikes and likes. And is it really, as I was saying before, it truly can't be that involved. You wouldn't think this personality would have its own backstory.
Sometimes they do. I mean, I've had some patients where each alter is kind of them at a different age, and then I've had other patients where there are alters who think they're from a totally different country, a completely different, born on a different continent and living in a different time, even in some cases. I mean, those are unusual, but what's not unusual is for them to have, different, like you said, likes and dislikes and that kind of thing. So, for example, you might have one alter who is relatively timid and kind and on the kind of inhibited side, and then a different alter who is much more thrill-seeking or aggressive or impulsive.
Gotcha. So it's normally big swings in the personalities, not like a subtle shift, but it's a whole different person serving a purpose. Yeah, exactly.
It's so hard to. I mean, it's not a whole different person, but it's but yeah, it's a different set of properties or of traits.
Yeah. Doctor, please bear with us. We are trying to wrap our minds. It's such a foreign concept.
I have a couple specific questions. I'm very interested just in estimate terms. How many people have you treated with this disorder? And then beyond that, it would really be fascinating to hear a few that maybe stand out on, maybe on either end of the spectrum, or I don't know if it's a binary spectrum, but, anyone that just stands out in your mind that might be particularly instructive on how this works or what is accomplished by it, telling someone's tale, that kind of thing. We'd just love to have any sort of specific details would be wonderful. And I'm just curious how many people you've treated, because it still seems so bizarre.
Well, the estimates in the DSM, which is our psychiatric Bible, are that about 1% of the population actually has dissociative identity disorder, and that's a very large number. That's about equal with schizophrenia, which is one of the major mental illnesses, and that's prevalent studies have been found that approximately that number on 3 different continents. And that's one of the things we take, as a sign of validity. If it's found in a lot of different cultures at around the same prevalence, that's kind of a sign of that you're kind of onto something. And so it's much more common than people think. But it's the chances are that you have actually either know somebody or have met somebody. You just wouldn't know it because they're not flaunting it. They normally seem like very normal people.
Do they tend to be loners, or do they not seek close friendship? I mean, what would be kind of their interpersonal way of dealing with others, or are they standoffish, or what are they like?
They're typically people whose trust has been completely shattered very early on. So forming close attachments can be very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. Their kind of basic working model is that everybody will betray you sooner or later, and trust is just very, very challenging. But in a kind of superficial situation, you might not notice anything at all. I mean,
maybe it's someone that
friendships and hang out and
they prefer strangers over close contact. So they really prefer talking with strangers and laughing with them than making close personal friends.
Yeah, I think when you get to the point, I mean, I think they often have acquaintances and, like I said, can hang out and do stuff like that. But when it comes to really trusting another person, really allowing themselves to be vulnerable, that's a real challenge and one of the big things that we work on in therapy, and it takes a long time. But, often the relationship with the therapist is a kind of testing ground for trusting someone.
Well, I was going to say, how many are married that you know of? I mean, do they, or are they generally single folks?
No, quite a few are married. I would say probably a third of the people I've treated are married, and often that relationship can be very, very strong. I think often they don't have a lot of very close contacts, but sometimes there's one person who's really been there for them, and that may be like, kind of somebody who's completely on the inside, whereas there's no one else like that.
So they have their inner circles, and that's about it, and they don't really stray from that.
Not easily. I mean, it wouldn't be easy to get really close, I think. But they have sometimes quite healthy marriages, and they can be quite good parents, and
Well, yeah, just because they have the disorder doesn't mean that they're broken people. Yeah, I mean they just have a disorder. Excuse me, that they're working through.
Right, and there's a million variations on the theme. I mean, you were asking about examples. I mean, unfortunately, I can't go into like a lot of detail because it's potentially a privacy violation. But I think they're a common kind of. Here are some commonalities. It's typically, if you're working with an adult, there are almost always some child alters, and that's because if the abuse occurred as a child, there are usually states that are kind of stuck in, sometimes they call it trauma time, that kind of still feel that they're at the time that the abuse is happening, and they often contain a lot of the very intense emotions that the person has learned to block off because, showing your feelings was definitely not a safe thing to do. And feeling out of control any more than you had to wasn't a safe thing to do. So, emotions were just very, very painful. So that's a lot of what gets kind of compartmentalized or held in separate states. And so it's quite common to have child alters, and that, the way that was portrayed in the movie, it's true. They will often talk like a child, with the cadence of a child, with a different tone of voice sometimes. I mean, it really can feel as if you're talking to a child, but you're not. I mean, it's important not to sort of make the mistake of treating them as if they're a child and kind of taking on an inappropriate kind of comforting role or something like that.
Sure. Well, what medications are on the market that are really effective with this disorder, if any?
There are no medications that specifically target dissociation. They're, like I was saying before, they often have other things like a mood disorder or an eating disorder. So there are a lot of medications that can be helpful in just mitigating symptoms, calming anxiety, or treating a depression if there is one. But the treatment for dissociative identity disorder per se is psychotherapy, and that can be quite effective. There's a big study going on now called D.I.D, which is out of the University of Towson in Maryland, Towson University, and it's the first kind of prospective treatment trial, and they are showing that treatment does help, and really helps enormously. But it's not it's not a biological disorder in the sense. I mean, everything has a biology, but this is an adaptation. It's an extreme and adaptation to highly, abnormal circumstances. It's not a diseased brain.
Yeah.
It's
a differently functioning
it's a set
brain.
of coping mechanisms that are formed early and that, become problematic over time, but initially were really, quite helpful. And we all have things like that, patterns of behavior that we learned as children because it was like how to get along in our family. But then it turns out that once you're outside your family and you're trying to, do other things, it's not always good to fall into those roles, right?
Exactly. Now, I was curious. Now, do people with this D.I.D. with D.I.D. that have been diagnosed, do they have a higher rate of criminal activity, or are they more or less shy away from that kind of lifestyle?
We don't have really good numbers on that. There are definitely, it's not uncommon to have aggressive parts.
Yeah.
And, like with any of us, there's a big difference between fantasizing or wanting to do something and actually doing it. But there is a relatively high percentage of Clarissa, you can tell me if you know about this, but there is a pretty high percentage of people with dissociative disorders in the prison system. So I think
that doesn't surprise me. I would say it would probably trend a bit more toward the female population with the dissociative disorders, but there's certainly trauma, and I think trauma across the board in the prison population. So I think it might just be underdiagnosed in the male population because we don't go there as much. Right. And a lot of guys do not self-refer. And if they don't know what's going, that's what I wanted to touch on a little bit earlier when you were talking about diagnosing, is that how hard is it to diagnose something where the person themselves doesn't even know what's going on?
It's really, you can start putting the pieces together if, again, it's all about if you know what you're looking for. And, so if somebody, the amnesia is a big thing. There aren't too many things that, give you big chunks of time that are gone, or sometimes it's even chunks of childhood. Like one person didn't remember all of 6th grade. Like she had a good memory of before and a good memory of after, but just couldn't remember anything at all about that year. That's a sign.
That's a big hole in time gone.
And contemporary things too, if they're just, constantly kind of forgetting that they had certain conversations or any of the signs of memory. But also you just learn to see these little sort of
little
these
tells.
dissociative moments where they might sort of space out or they might shift suddenly, or you kind of get the feel for that.
I was going to say, my gosh, it must take a long time to get that educated eye to it. A lot of talking to that person, getting to know them, and then watching them change. It must be very, very hard to do.
It takes a long time to get to know the terrain of any particular person, but I think the biggest key, though, is just recognizing that the initial signs are there and that you have to explore that terrain. Because that's what I think a lot of people just don't get trained to do. Another thing that's kind of misleading about the representation in Split and in other things I've seen is that the people are kind of presented as always alert and,
exactly.
sort of whatever state they're in, they're like on the ball.
Yeah.
And that's not typical. Usually there's some of the symptoms that are quite common are actually fluctuations in level of alertness or consciousness. They usually there are moments of spacing out. There are more perceptible moments of discontinuity of some kind. They'll complain of fatigue and forgetfulness and inattention and just generally kind of having a harder time of it than they often appear in these.
Yeah. And one quick question, and the movie, of course, it's a movie, and so I'm drawing upon it a little bit heavily just to have a reference. Does it do people who suffer from D.I.D., do they commonly have such wide age gaps in their personalities? Like one of his personalities is a 9-year-old, another one is, I'm presuming, in their 40s, a woman. Does that happen a lot? And do they cross genders?
Yeah, those things do happen. Again, we're talking about the severe end of the spectrum, but
yes, yep.
But they often. For example, I treat a woman who's in her 50s who has alters that range from 3, 11, 15, 16, in their 20s.
Now,
these are all different.
Would that be ages that trauma occurred?
Usually it is.
Okay.
That's
gotcha.
That's often part of why there's one particular age, because of what was happening at that time.
So it's like arrested development then. It's like a pause button's pushed on that personality.
Yeah, it's kind of like, this is the horrible stuff that's going on right now. I can't survive if I let myself know about it. So it just kind of gets sequestered there and not integrated, and just kind of stays in this arrested time.
Okay, so that makes total sense. So that personality would hold the pain, while the other personality would be free to go and move on, but that one's stuck in that suspension.
Right,
to where
exactly,
it took off, where the pain was, and that's another way that it's protecting the host from having to deal with all that pain.
Right, right. But you can imagine when you do tap into it, it can be quite overwhelming.
Now, has anyone ever hypnotized any of these people?
That's interesting. Is that a question you just came up with?
Yeah, just came up with that one. I'm curious if anyone's hypnotized them.
Yeah, they are usually quite hypnotizable. There's a range in the general population of hypnotizability, but they go into these kind of trance-like states themselves, kind of automatically. The dissociative states it's not the same, but it's sorry, when I'm speaking of trance, when you hypnotize somebody, you put them into a trance. That's the sometimes they say put you into hypnosis, but and they're kind of auto-hypnotizing themselves a lot. And it's a big asset if you're trained in hypnosis to treat these people, because you can do a lot of work in hypnosis to help them use these dissociative capacities to their benefit.
So do you ever make them bark like a dog behind closed doors, though, when you're hypnotized, just for fun, and they'll never know about it?
Cluck like a chicken.
Yeah, that's a whole different story, is the perceptions of hypnosis versus reality, but it can be very helpful.
We've covered every age of man and gender and whatnot. Do people ever think they're animals?
Oh, good question, Aaron.
That is a good question. Yeah, sometimes, a lot of it is also about, a child's imagination. When kids do pretend play, or when they have imaginary friends or something, it's not uncommon for some of the alters to be imaginary friends from childhood, and they could feel like a pet. I mean, they don't, they're not going to go around like for a day acting like a dog or something, but sometimes people will experience themselves as if they're some type of animal in one of their states. I've never seen that. I've never seen like elaborate animal behavior or anything.
No
like
one
that,
came up going up to your office. Okay, so that we could cover that, and I'm trying, obviously make a light of that, but in all seriousness, it's really a deep subject matter that we can barely scratch the surface in this hour. And my gosh, we got 4 minutes left, and really, we'd like to thank you, of course, for coming on and talking, because it's a hard subject matter. My gosh.
How can people get a hold of you? And I know you mentioned there's some organizations that are very that deal with this topic. Please, let's let our listeners know if they have anyone they know, or even they themselves think they may have some aspect of this, or be demonstrating it. Where should they go? What should they do?
I really appreciate that. I'm easy to find on the web, and my office is in New York, and I am part of an organization called the International Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation, which has a website, and I think you said you'd put the link up with this program.
Yes,
it's ISSTD, and on the website there are lists of practitioners. There's a lot of educational material. There's a lot of resources.
Very, very cool. Thank you again for coming on, and wow, I'm gonna look into this deeper, because I find it very fascinating what the mind is capable of, to be honest with you, and look beyond the movie, get the real facts for anyone that doesn't know about this disorder, instead of taking the movie at face value, because I kind of found it a little bit exploitive in some ways. So, look beyond the facts, dig into it, find out what the disorder truly is before you make a judgment call on anything find out for yourselves. On behalf of myself, Joel Sturgis, of course, Mr. Eric Olsen, and the beautiful and talented Dr. Clarissa Cole, we'd like to thank Dr. Garrett Deckel for coming on the show and discussing D.I.D. with us. Take care, everyone. Love each other. Until next time, watch Split.
Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.